Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future of Data and AI. I'm your host, Raja Iqbal. It is my pleasure to welcome Amr Awadallah to the podcast. Amr is a serial entrepreneur and a prominent name in cloud computing industry. We'll talk to Amr about the journey as a technologist and his work at Yahoo and Cloudera and his most recent startup, Vectara. Welcome to the show, Amr.
It's good to be here.
So, Amr, which applications or industries you think will find it easier to adopt GenAI, and which ones it would be harder, right? So, there could be different use cases. There could be regulatory requirements, the quality of data and all of that. So, do you have any classification or maybe based on your experience, which industries or which enterprises you thought, yes, it is going to be a bit of an uphill battle for them to adopt GenAI versus, hey, these are slam dunk, easy use cases?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So first, in terms of which businesses and which verticals will be using this technology and will benefit from this technology, I usually answer the question by asking a question. I'll ask you this question, Raja. Which businesses should have software as part of their business?
Every business.
Exactly. Every business needs to have software as a business. And why is that? Because software is adding a lot of efficiency. It's automating a lot of things, making them happen a lot faster. And unlike humans, when you figure out how to do something with software, and it can make mistakes, but once you fix that mistake never happens again, period, right? Humans, you punish them, they make the mistake, a couple of years go by and they can make the same mistake again, right? And that's a very, 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 very big problem with humans. And that's why we have software everywhere. It's because software is helping streamline and increase the efficiencies of our businesses, whether we're agriculture, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, even a tailor, an accountant. We all need to have software around us. Same thing would be true for AI. Like we're seeing the beginning of it right now, but I expect every single business in every single industry will be affected by this within the next 5 years. Like it will happen. And if they don't evolve to embrace this and adopt this and leverage this, if they stay afraid of it and stay away from it, I'm afraid they're going to fall behind. The other businesses would win. And we have many evidence of that. If you look at the IT revolution, and the businesses and the banks and the insurance companies and even e-commerce shops, whatever, that truly leverage technologies, they became the leaders of the world. And the ones that did not, they disappeared. It's not that they became smaller. They literally disappeared. E.g. Blockbuster. Look at Blockbuster versus Netflix, for example. There's many like that. So that's my preamble, is every single business and every single industry will need to pay attention to this. Now, the second part of your question was, for which ones will it be easier or harder? I think that's I know it sounds like a facetious answer, but my answer to that is up to you. It's up to the business. It's literally up to the business. Some businesses will have very strong leaders that will make it happen right here, right now, even in a very, very regulated industry. Like if you look at JP Morgan, for example, which is one of the leading companies and leading banks in the US, but they actually have a very, very strong leader. They just came in and said, we're going to adopt GenAI left and right. It's going to be here. And they have it now all over the organization, right? So even though they are in a very, very heavily regulated industry, they of course, accuracy is very important for them, et cetera, et cetera. But if I put that aside, that's my message of hope. Is I'm telling leaders in these businesses, you have control of how fast it's going to move. It's going to be hard. It definitely was hard for JP Morgan to go through all the regulations and approvals. But if you have the will and if you have the conviction that AI is going to be the accelerator for your business in the future, you can make it happen, right? So that's my preamble. Now, of course, it's a no-brainer that the harder businesses to do this for are the business where one of two things are happening. Either it's hard to get your hands on the data is fragmented, it's all over the place, or you haven't digitized yet. So your data is still on paper. It's not in digital form. So that's number one. And in fact, in all of our POCs with customers and all of our evaluations, the hardest part is always the data and how can we get the data to flow in a smooth way. That's it. Once it flows in a smooth way, the AI part is easy. The AI part works just like that. But getting the data in a clear form and getting the right data, because as we all love to say, garbage in, garbage out, is the hardest part. So that's number one. Number two is, yes, of course, heavily regulated businesses will have a lot more steps and hoops they will need to jump through for approval process, and that can delay things a bit, but it's not something that should be an impediment. It's something you have to do anyway. Even if you do this 2 years from now, you still have to do it. If you do it 5 years from now, you still have to do it. Compliance is very, very important for a reason. It's because you're dealing with very In the case of finance, you're dealing with people's money. In the case of health, you're dealing with people's lives. So you have to have these compliance and governance rules, which slow you down a bit. But that should not be the reason why you don't do it. It should not be the reason, oh, I'm not going to adopt AI because I have too much compliance. Then, again, you're going to fail. You're going to disappear 5 years from now, I promise you.
Yeah, that's great. So hypothetically speaking, maybe more of a rhetorical question for you here, right? So if I was able to get all the books on, as a general practitioner, my primary care physician, so I took all the medical books and maybe some case records and all of that and pushed them into Vectara. So will doctors be out of job? I mean, what would it look like?
As I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, every single job will be impacted by AI significantly over the next few years in ways that we cannot predict actually as well. So, I mean, just look at, like before we go to doctors, I mean, to look at some of the jobs that already have been replaced or are being replaced in front of our eyes by AI, autonomous driving, like cars that drive themselves. Like in San Francisco here, we have Waymo, and you can grab the Waymo app, which is like just like Uber, and you say, I want to go from here to here, and a car shows up with no driver in it, and you just go in the car and you get out on the other side, and it's the smoothest drive you ever have, way better than a real driver, way safer. The first time you do it, you're going to be a little bit afraid because it looks like there's a ghost sitting, moving the wheel, which is very freaky. But once you do the first couple of rides, wow, it's actually a better experience. Like I'm actually safer inside cars like that. Now, will Waymo make an accident every now and then? Meaning, will the AI cause somebody to die every now and then? Probably. But, and same thing, if we automate medicine with AI, will that AI doctor every now and then make a mistake? Probably. Will they make the same volume of mistakes that humans are making? Not even close. Like today, we have 40,000 people that die in the United States because of bad drivers, right? 40,000 people die using a technology. The cars that we have invented decades ago are still dying today because of humans not learning from the mistakes, because of humans answering their phone while they're driving, or drinking and driving, or putting makeup while they're driving, and then they end up having this bad accident. And AI will make that disappear. Same thing for doctors. A doctor can go in and they're doing a diagnosis, but they just had a personal issue with their spouse. Their spouse was shouting to them and blaming them, or one of their kids did something that made them fume just minutes ago, and now they're doing the diagnosis. Do you think that's going to be a good diagnosis? No, it's not going to be a good diagnosis. Only the best doctors actually know how to compartmentalize and separate their emotions from their logic. But most humans know that the emotions will affect their analysis, will affect their perception. So to have an AI assistant side by side with that doctor that catches them when they do that, say, no, actually, this is not the right diagnosis. This should be the right diagnosis. At least that doctor now will get the second chance to re-examine their opinion and re-examine their diagnosis. So that is my first way of saying the first wave of AI will be the AI assistant wave, where no, the doctors will not be replaced. The doctors will be supplemented by the AI to significantly reduce the probability of the doctor making a diagnosis mistake. Same thing with driving. If you look at the first wave of autonomous driving, if you put Waymo aside, if you look at Tesla, for example, I have a Tesla. Tesla has the autonomous driving in it full self-driving, but it still requires you to be holding the wheel. And I think that's because what's happening here is saying, oh, we're going to let the assistant do most of the work, but you still need to be paying attention if something really crazy is happening, we want you to engage because the AI might not be able to do it. I think the reason why they ask you to hold the wheel, though, is for liability reasons. Is they want to say if the accident happens, it was your mistake, your hand was on the wheel. and that's the bigger problem here. So if you ask me about this, if you go back to this question about doctors and will AI for medicine be all over the world, I think it will be, but it might be in the US at the end, not at the beginning, because the US is such a litigious country where you have liability rules and you have lawsuits happening for anything, even the smallest, most ridiculous things, especially in medicine. And that's why, by the way, the health system is very expensive and very crazy here. But in other countries, like if I go back to my home country, Egypt, where 80 million people don't have access to good doctors, they just call up their aunt and they tell their aunt, oh, auntie, I have a headache right now, my stomach, what should I do? And their aunt tells them, go to the pharmacy and get this medicine. And that can be a really bad medicine. And that happens everywhere. That's really, really bad. And I don't know if it happens in India and Pakistan or other countries like Egypt. So imagine now, instead of the aunt, you have this very, very strong, knowledgeable LLM on your phone that can answer the medical question way better than your aunt. It's not as good as a doctor, but it's way better than your aunt. Isn't that a major improvement for developing countries? I think it is. And I think it will really take off there first, by the way. Like, we'll see that happening. It's my prediction.
So the way then I look at your answer is it is at least for the next few years or the foreseeable future, it is going to be more of a decision support system as opposed to a decision making system
Yes.
in most
Yes.
industries, and especially the ones that are regulated.
Yes.
And I also get the sense from your answer that, well, in you mentioned Egypt or Pakistan or India, if the regulatory requirements are not that stringent, then overall it will improve the access to healthcare for people, right? So yes, I mean,
and education. Education is the other huge thing. There is many studies that show you that if you have a dedicated one-on-one teacher, if you are growing up as a kid and you had a dedicated one-on-one teacher working with you, that your intellect and your IQ and your ability to grow in life will be 2 standard deviations higher than if you were in a class with 30 other students. Right? That's the same you. That's a control. There was a control set. That's the same you. That's not like a function of, oh, the other kid was poorer or richer. No, this is the same you if you were in this environment versus that environment. So imagine now with AI, we have teachers that are the best teachers in the world. So they study after, they're modeled after the best teacher you can find for physics, the best teacher you can find for math. And now all of the kids are learning from them on their phones, with their voice, with a proper figure, looking at them and looking at their homework as they're solving it with their hand and correcting them. No, do it this way instead. Do it that way. Oh, you made a mistake here. Double check here. We're gonna have way smarter kids again from the developing countries. There's gonna be way smarter kids coming out than ever before because of this technology.
so perhaps, I mean, maybe as you mentioned, way smarter kids. What happens to social skills then, right? So because they are glued to their laptops and their iPads. So what happens? I mean, just out of curiosity, what do you think about that?
So that's an excellent question. I love that question. So I would say 2 things. First, what makes us superior as humans is tools. Is both that if you look at like the thing that distinguishes humans from any other animal on this planet, and it's the reason why we are so dominant and we are the leaders of this planet, is because we can invent tools and then we can use these tools very, very efficiently, right? So there's a very famous study that studied what are the most efficient animal in terms of traveling long distances as a function of how much calories they have consumed. And the number one animal by far is the hawk, because they fly and they can glide. They can fly extremely long distances on a very small amount of calories, and they are by far the most superior animal when it comes to that. Now, take a human and give them a bicycle, and they beat the hawk. Right? So the human with a bicycle will travel way longer distances on a per calorie basis compared to what the hawk is able to travel. And that's because we are so good at using tools. Now, we have the bike. Do we stop walking? Did we not learn how to walk when we were young kids? No, we still learned how to walk, even though we had that tool available to our disposal, because we knew that we need to be doing both of these things. And we need to know when the tool is the right answer versus not the right answer. Same thing with calculators. Calculators have been around for a very long time, but we still teach kids at school how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, even though when you grow up, you never do that. You just use a calculator to do that. So why do you still learn the fundamentals? Because we know it's important. It's a fundamental skill that we have to learn before we can use the tool to do it. And the same thing applies to social skills, right? So it's on us. Absolutely. We have to be teaching our kids and the schools, and the same way they're teaching us science, and they have to be teaching us social skills and teaching us when it's appropriate to be online and when it's not appropriate to be online. Otherwise, it will get out of hand. And frankly, that happened with the social media revolution, unfortunately, is we didn't have proper controls at the beginning, and now it's becoming an addiction for many, many kids, and that's concerning, and we need to start working on that.
Yeah,
but that's up to us. That's up to us, Raj. Like Raja, I want to highlight that. Like we need to, as a civilization, we need to continue to teach ourselves and our kids the fundamentals, and the focus should be on the fundamentals, and then immediately on curiosity, meaning building in us and in our brains the curiosity to be continuously learning and continuously open to adapt, to do new things. And that's going to be even more important for our kids, because we had the luxury. Once I learn data science, I can be a data scientist for the rest of my life. Our kids are not going to have that luxury. They're going to learn something, and then AI at some point will take it over completely. Oh, now I have to learn something else. You won't be able to do the same career for 40, 50 years. You will have to evolve and learn. So that the key skills that I try to imbue in my kids, and I advise everybody else to be doing the same, is number one, curiosity. Have them ask why questions all the time, and you ask them why questions all the time. Get them to be thinking all the time. That's number one. Number two is adaptability. to have the willingness to change what they're doing. Unfortunately, humans, most of us were born with the fear of changing, right? Once we find something, we love it, and we know how to do it, we don't go learn the new thing. No, you have to tell your kids, no, that fear cannot exist. If you have that fear, you're not going to succeed in life. And then last but not least is to have resilience. Is very, very important. Meaning you're going to lose your job, find another job. Lose your job, find another job. You're going to fall down, stand up again. Fall down, stand up again. You're going to fail, succeed, fail, succeed. You need to have that resilience. It's not always going to be good. There's going to be ups and downs all the time through your career.
So like teach them to be an entrepreneur throughout their life, right? So fail and then try again and succeed, or fail until you succeed, right?
Yeah, I think that's very well summarized, Raja. Like, I think the key skill of the future is for all of our kids to be thinking like owners, to think like owners and entrepreneurs that control their life and what they're doing. And by the way, they're going to have tools that allow them to do that. Like our kids will, I have a great idea. I'm going to make a business around it. They'll be able to go to the computer, create the app, create the marketing campaign, create the pitch deck for the investors, and maybe the AI will pitch to the investors, get them the money. Like it's going to be a different world that they are be living in. And absolutely, I would say that's a very good summary. Teach them to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So going back to, maybe the technical or business side of Vectara and the similar businesses. So do you think that applications like Vectara and Perplexity and SearchGPT, and there are many like this, do you think that this is going to be the future of enterprise and web search? So there is this discussion that often happens that Google is in trouble because now Perplexity is there, and I have my own opinion on that, but I will hold off expressing my opinion. I would
love to hear your opinion. So maybe I'll express mine first, and then you can share yours.
For instance, for Perplexity, right? So I think supporting the infrastructure, first of all, at that scale, a free service like this, I know how pricing works for these kind of things. So, having something like Google, it would be a very interesting business model that they will have to build. I mean, will this hold little ads? I don't know. And then going back to the hallucination problem, my opinion is that GenAI, as we see right now, we are far from AGI at the moment, right? So we're very far from that, right? I see that as something that is very vertical or task specific. And then given the amount of data that you have, Perplexity may have access to, right? So it may not be as easy as to give a very a detailed answer on a specific topic, right? So I think that hallucination problem, partly it is the correctness problem because the scope is so broad. It's a general purpose search engine. It's not. So if it was Perplexity for a very specific legal type of documents, I think I would be okay. Perplexity for oncology, I would be okay. But if it is all-knowing Perplexity, it is still, there's going to be some perplexity. Maybe that's how they named it, right? So, and then, of course, I mean, supporting the infrastructure like this in longer term, they will need a lot of money actually to initially survive. So that's my take. I would like to hear from you now.
So I agree with you, but I'll add something on top of that. I think they can do it. Like from a technology point of view, I think it's doable. Like it's not, like technology is not the problem. Money is the problem, as you correctly highlighted. It would require a lot of money. The business model is also a big problem. It's like, how are you going to fund this as you grow? But the bigger problem is the brand value of Google. You cannot underestimate how strong Google brands is. Mm-hmm. I competed with Google, so I was at Yahoo for a number of years. I was partners with them in the early years, competing with them in the later years. So they are a very, very formidable competitor in terms of the market, the presence. They have the Chrome browser that gives them lots of dominance. They are the default on iPhone devices or Android devices. Like that dominance is just you cannot underestimate that. Like penetrating that is really hard, and maybe that's why the U.S. government a couple of weeks ago is saying now that this is clearly a monopoly and needs to be broken down and handled in a different way. So that is the reason why it's very hard to succeed against Google. They just have a very, very strong brand, and then they have a very, very strong business model that's already feeding this beast, right? Like if you're starting from scratch, you don't have that. So Yahoo tried very hard. We couldn't do it at Yahoo. Microsoft tried even harder. Microsoft spent hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars, and they only have 3% market share, right? And by the way, they have the same thing Perplexity has right now, right? If you go to Bing will give you the summary with citations and everything that you get from Perplexity, maybe shorter, not as longer. I like actually Perplexity's longer mode. There's another company called U.com in the space as well that you might be familiar with. So I really wish them the best. I wish them that they would succeed. But at the same time, I know firsthand it's extremely hard to win consumers over from Google. Extremely hard, right? So that's going to be the challenge. How much money you need to spend to get the consumers. It's not how much money you spend to build the models. It's going to be how much money you need to spend and the business relationships. How much money does Google spend to give to Apple, I think, to be the default on... Perplexity will never be able to pay that, ever. Right? So we'll see if it gets there. So, but I want to take a step back and highlight something important to you, Raja. Sorry, do you want to add something on Perplexity?
Yeah, so I think it is also the ecosystem part, right? So, Microsoft tried to beat Apple in they brought some of the Nokia devices. They were one of the most amazing pieces of hardware, but they did not have the ecosystem surrounding it, right? Similarly, Google has been trying, Android ecosystem.
Android is success. I mean, I think Google's try with Android is amazing. Now Google Pixel, their own line of phones, of course, that's still weak. And I love the Pixel. I have a Pixel. That's what I use. I think it has one of the best cameras out there. But yes, it was very hard for Google's Pixel to really stand out to Apple. Like Apple is just amazing. Samsung itself also is amazing as a company that makes phones. So there's the operating system and there is the hardware, and the hardware is a different story. Like it's hard to compete.
And the entire ecosystem that they have. I mean, the way Apple is positioned right now in the smartphone market, similarly, Google is positioned in the same manner in the search market, right? So I was trying to bring that analogy that it is not just the product that matters; it is the ecosystem that is built around that product.
Right.
People don't only use a single product. I mean, so the product is the ecosystem, really. Let me put it best, or rather, the ecosystem is the product.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's a big part that gives these companies at the beginning advantage, but at the end, when they abuse these systems, give them a monopoly, right? So that in the same way that the U.S. government went after Google, I'm pretty sure they're going to go after Apple for the same thing. They need to open up their ecosystem a bit. They cannot have iMessage be only iMessage. They cannot have the contact exchange be only between iPhones, and you cannot do it between any other. Like there is some things they're doing, or they had what's the charger they had that you had to buy the charger from Apple
eventually, right? So now exactly. Are coming with the USB-C charger.
But we have to do that. Like we had to force them to do that. Like the European Union had to go to them and say, you must do it, right? Because they don't want it. So because they now have the control and they control the ecosystem. So that's I agree with you 100%. Like there needs to be some more changes on the ecosystem side to be able to attack, I don't want to say attack, to be able to compete with Google and compete with Apple. But going back to the premise of your question, first, you lumped us in the same category as Perplexity and GPT Search. I want to say, yes, we are retrieval of imagination systems, but our focus at Vectara, just to be very clear, is business to business, right? We provide our technologies to businesses so they can build these applications within their organizations or for their consumers, as opposed to Perplexity was building this for you directly, meaning for consumers directly, or Search GPT, which is also going to be directly for consumers. So I just want to highlight that key caveat. Now, is that going to be a future important part of every enterprise? Oh, absolutely. There's no question. Every organization will need to have an amazing internal AI assistant that can help all of their workers become a lot more productive, right? Enterprise search is broken in everywhere. If you look at enterprise search, and even at Google, by the way, Google internally, we had something called MoMA. I left Google a few years ago, so I don't want to make lots of comments about where it is today. But yeah, it was really bad. Like very rarely you will get good answers. But leveraging AI towards that problem and doing it in a smart way, taking the connection between people and so on, can give you way, way better answers. And not just answers, can help you do new things. You can say, oh, I'm working on this new presentation for Project Chevron. I'm just speaking a name. I don't mean Chevron, the company. And help me create this presentation. The AI would go, would search, would find the best presentations on Chevron, the more recent ones, would know from the social graph who is more involved with that topic versus not, and create the beginning of that presentation for you, and then you can go complete. So we need these things. We need these things in our organizations. So if you ask me the question, will this be an essential part of every business in the future? Yes, it will be. But it's more than just enterprise search, Raja. I want to highlight that. It's not just about enterprise search. This is about software overall. Like it all goes beyond enterprise search. Every piece of software, every app on our devices will have an interactive component to it where I can tell the app what I want. So one of the layman examples I give sometimes is photo editing software. So imagine you're out with your family in Seattle, you're on the beach, there is a nice sunset happening behind the water, and you take this perfect picture of your family, and you go back home, and you're enjoying the picture, but then you notice that one of your kids had their finger up their nose, right? And they did that on purpose just to make the picture look bad. To go and fix that with a mobile app today is very hard, right? You have to go, if you're using Photoshop, you have to read the manual, look at YouTube, figure out the steps, how to move the hand, correct the shadows, fill in the space properly behind where the hand was, correct the lighting. It's incredibly hard to do, right? The flow, the steps, it's doable, but very, very hard to do. In the future, meaning a year from now, I'm not looking 2 years from now, like a year from now, you just tell Photoshop, can you please take my son's finger out of his nose? And the hand will move away and his finger will be out of the nose. So that's what we're talking about. This is really what we're talking about here, Raja. This is why I'm excited about this space. Is every single piece of software around us will evolve in a way that will allow us to work with us like we work with each other.
Yeah. So in general, then if we look at the society then, right, so future of work and society and in general, we see a lot of things. They are fundamentally, I mean, even for us, both of us, I mean, we have been in this space for some time. We have seen things evolve. So in general, in society, what is the most exciting application of generative AI that you're looking forward to? It does not have to be in terms of technology, it could be in terms of social good, in terms of, the impact. What would that be if you would like to see generative AI change one thing or two things or three things? What would be those things?
Yeah, so first I'm biased. I think the AI assistance that we're building is that. And I'll give you a very quick example of it. So just to show you the level of impact it can have and how it can truly change things in significant ways. So one of our customers is called Obaikan. Obaikan is the largest manufacturer in the Middle East. And they have hundreds of thousands of workers in their factory. And sometimes the machines in the factory break down. So the workers are not engineers, they're not technicians. They don't know how to fix the machine. They have to call the technician. The technician can take 2-3 days to show up, which is downtime for the factory. So what they have done, they took all of the manuals of all of the equipment in their factories. They took all of the troubleshooting tickets with the steps of how these machines were maintained, repaired, and fixed in the past, uploaded all of that into our system, connected the prompt API back into the mobile app that the workers have in the factory, and now the workers fix the machines themselves. So when there is a problem in the machine, the worker takes a picture, they describe the problem, they give back the steps for how to fix the problem, and then they apply these steps. How is that beneficial? It's beneficial in so many ways. First, the downtime is reduced. The machine can be repaired so quickly. Second, you don't have to pay the expensive technicians. Third, the workers get upskilled. Actually, the workers are learning how to fix the machines themselves right now because they have this ChatGPT-like experience where they're talking with it, is walking them to the steps for how to fix the machine. They fix the machine. They do that once, they do that twice, and now they became an engineer. Or at least for that type of equipment, they now know how to fix it. So how is that going to change the world? It's going to change the world around us in every single discipline. We have lawyers doing that. We have ultrasound radiologists doing that. We have people doing social work doing that and helping the social workers become more effective. We have people on oil rigs that are worried about violating a policy that might create an explosion, that have this AI assistant watching them and telling them, no, you should not do this. This is against policy. You should do that. It's going to change everything that we do. It's going to make us a lot more efficient, a lot more productive, and it's going to make the average human, like this worker in the factory, do things that normally they couldn't do. The other amazing thing with this worker example I just gave is the fact that the platform that we have is cross-lingual. So the language doesn't matter. The neural network, the medic models, everything is cross-lingual. So even though the documents is all in English, the workers are able to ask the question in any language they would like. So some of the workers ask in Arabic, some in Punjabi, some in Mandarin, some in French, and they still get the response in their own language, even though the underlying source of knowledge was in a different language. And that's a great benefit for such organizations. So that's my biased answer, right? As I think we are a big part of it. Now, if you ask me, what is the most impactful GenAI technology right here, right now? It's the code gen technologies. Like I can tell you, like our productivity as an engineering team at Vectara is 100 times more than it was 10 years ago because of code gen, right? Because of using things like Copilot and GitHub, and Sonnet from Claude is amazing. Like if you haven't used Sonnet for coding, you have to be looking at it right now. It's ridiculously good.
Better than Copilot for GitHub?
Yeah, better than Copilot by far, yes. But so Copilot is good for the smaller, complete this task, complete this function, help me debug this. Sonnet for bigger projects, for bigger kind of, it really will blow you away. Like give it a try. It's truly next level, like even compared to GPT. So that's the most impactful today. Now, if you ask me what is the most fun today, the most fun today is the image generation, the music generation, and video generation technologies. Like, so I, just a couple of days ago, if you go look at my Twitter, look at Awadullah, you will see me, I just posted a small video I made I was dreaming, and I made it in 2 minutes, and I couldn't believe I made that video in 2 minutes. I was dreaming, what if there was a big pizza, a humongous pizza, the size of a Colosseum, in the middle of a desert, with a great sun rising behind it, and a big crowd of people eating the pizza, like surrounding the pizza and eating it.
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like? And the video came out looking exactly like I was dreaming. Today, with amazing quality of graphics, amazing, like you couldn't even tell it's a fake video, except for the pizza size is huge, so it cannot be real. So that's amazing, and I see that as well as 2 years from now, any of us will be able to create the next Matrix or the next Star Wars just by ourselves. We won't need a big crew. We won't need 100 million funding to do Avengers and Infinity Stone. We'll just be able to do it ourselves, and this amazing movie will come out on the other end. So that's very exciting, very, very exciting, that any of us can create any app we would like, any movie we would like, any music we would like, cure anybody that has a sickness, teach our kids in a much better way, because we have these amazing technologies on our side. I'm so optimistic about the future from that perspective.
So 7 generations from now, people would still be watching Mission Impossible 50 or something. It looks like that is going to be the case. And maybe I can I can create my own Mission Impossible.
I would say before 7 generations is really way deep in time. That's a lot of time if we go 7, especially that we're living longer and we're staying longer before we have kids. But yeah, will Tom Cruise still be alive in 7 generations? That's the bigger question.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he will be. That is, he does it deep. So
younger every
he keeps getting younger, right? So that's great. So out of all the startups that there are many actually that are quite popular, get a lot of press. So besides Vectara, what are some of your favorite startups, and why do you find them interesting, or why do you think that they're likely going to succeed?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So see, this is different things. Like I can find a startup or an application very interesting, but I could be skeptical of their success. Like Perplexity, I use Perplexity and I love their UI and I leverage them, but I'm skeptical of their success.
Maybe we can separate the two parts.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I totally get that. Maybe I did not phrase the question correctly, right? So the idea is wonderful, but there's some skepticism. Yeah.
Or for example, another one I use right now, which I'm very love it, and I use it, is Runway ML. Runway ML, they do the video animations based on images, but Sora, when it comes out, might kill them because Sora looks way, way better. It looks way, way better, and it can do way longer videos. So we'll see how that plays out. But if you ask me something, so you ask me a company right now that I really respect and I really love what they're doing. So I have to say I really respect Meta. Like the stuff that Meta AI is doing by releasing these amazing models, and not just Llama, the voice detection model. They have so many, the segmentation, the image segmentation, video segmentation, real-time video segmentation right now. Truly, truly amazing stuff. So they are not just helping themselves, they're helping the world in an amazing way. So I have to say, I have to give them kudos. And I don't say that lightly. Like I was actually not a big fan of Facebook historically, but given these recent changes with Meta AI releasing all these amazing models, I'm very, very, very impressed by them and very positive on them as well. I think they will do some amazing things leveraging this technology as well. In terms of smaller startups that I'm very impressed by, I would say very impressed by Mistral and what Mistral is doing. Now, will they succeed as a business? We'll look at that. They will get some sales initially with people wanting their models, but open source is hard to monetize. I want to see how they monetize that the longer term. But definitely very, very impressed by how much they were able to accomplish, given how small their team size is. Let's see if there's any other ones Suno AI, the music generation service. I don't know if you have tried that one. If you haven't, go give it a try.
I haven't tried it, but someone was showing me, and it was once again impressive.
Yeah. You can go right now and say, hey, let's make a song about Raja and Amr talking about AI. And it will make a song about Raja and Amr talking about AI. The song will come out on the other end with music, in the tone, in the style you would like, rap, hip-hop, classical, you can, whatever. And it will just come out. It's really amazing. Very, very cool.
Yeah. So how do you keep up with all of that? I mean, I find it as a technologist, I find it really mind-numbing. Someone will tell me, hey, did you check this out? No, I'm sorry, I'm not aware. So how do you stay up to date with whatever is happening in industry? Do you allocate some time reading? Is it some forums, groups, discussions? How do you stay up to date?
I allocate at least an hour and a half every day to stay up to date. Right. And I stay up to date in 2 ways. I have 3 or 4 newsletters that I'm subscriber to. They figured out what my interest very well, and the articles they send are dead on, all of them. And then Twitter. Like Twitter is like following the right people on Twitter and leveraging the cluster algorithms. Twitter has a feature called Top Articles, which pulls in all the top articles from your network. I check that once a day as well, and it shows me all the top articles that my network is sharing and retweeting and so on. And then historically, that would take longer than an hour and a half. But now, leveraging the summarization technologies, I can go through a lot more because I summarize most of the articles. I don't read the entire article. I don't read the entire blog post. I summarize it. So I have a plugin that I use to summarize that. And then if I find the summary is very intriguing, oh, now, yeah, this looks, now I need to read this one. Then I go deeper and read that one. And I found that increased my knowledge absorption capacity, though it reduced the depth, but the breadth became higher by about maybe 10x by leveraging these summarization technologies. Yeah.
So you have your own Vectara assistant then for all the
no, this is
basically, right? So
that's a good idea. Actually, we do have that. We do have a plugin that does that. That would index all of the. It's a free open source plugin, by the way. You can grab that will index all of the articles that you're reading and keep them for you in a RAG. And you can go back and ask it. Say, oh, I saw this article a long time ago about how people are building neural networks using biological neurons instead of semiconductor neurons. Can you summarize that article back again for me? And we'll just bring that for you right away. So but no, the plugin I'm using is a GPT plugin. It just does summarization. It doesn't do storage. Yeah,
I see. So what I do is we have a similar tool that we have built. What I do is any paper that I read or yesterday, I found 10 papers on AI governance, basically just push them in. And once they are all sorted and organized, I can always go back and ask it to summarize. And that I find that as actually a lot of, call it a force multiplier. It helps me actually stay productive.
You should release that as a product. That sounds like a good product idea, actually, for researchers and such.
Yeah.
So you should think about making it available as an open source product.
Absolutely. So, Amr, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too. You too.